A couple of years ago, a star was born. No Players Online was released to itch.io back in 2019, and boy, let me tell you, it was a hit. It was honestly one of the very few horror games that actually managed to deeply unsettle my smooth, battle-hardened brain. It was perfectly horrific in every sense of the word. Thankfully, I was able to comfort myself under the belief that, this game was over, I had seen the last of it, and I could put all of my fears behind me. But that was a lie. A new demo just came out for an updated version of this game. And guess what, guys? I played it. And it was still just as horrible as I remember. So let's break down that experience together, shall we? The game first opens up to a login screen. Without knowing the passwords to the other two users, we are forced to log in as a guest. Yuck. Now, as you can see here, I was delighted to enjoy a moment of peace while playing Mindfriend. Just to forget is a treasure that many don't truly appreciate. After a few moments of brain rot, I finally managed to make my way over to the web browser, where I found a forum was saved to the bookmarks. While reading around a bit, I found that some of the glitches on the website are due to their servers mysteriously catching on fire somehow. It's okay. I was active on one of these types of forums once. I wanted to erase the evidence too. After click-clacking around some more, I stumbled across a hidden treasure, a potential virus for me to download onto the computer. My favorite pastime. I simply couldn't refuse. I was delighted. However, before I could even play the game, I got a message from someone. Completely normal online bro-dude behavior. He says he saw that I was online on the forum and was looking to make new friends. He asked if I wanted to play a game. The only right answer here is yes, of course. He invites me to a completely abandoned Capture the Flag game and gives me the link. Now, based on the copyright on the home screen, you might have noticed that this game was made in 1973. Far too early for a game as advanced as this, but we'll get into that later. Oddly enough, the guy that messaged us never joins the game as promised. He stood us up on our first date. The whole time while walking around this map, I was legitimately so fucking paranoid, I shit you not. I was half expecting a little creature, a little bug to jump out at me or something. It was awful. I kept twitching and looking over my shoulder. After running around in circles for a bit and making my way back to the red flag area, the gate opens and a user joins the game. Apart from the glitching text, two letters remain constant, an S and an H. I put two and two together here and figured it was Sarah after reviewing the footage. Now, if you guys haven't picked up on it, this is not our little friend that we just spoke to earlier. It was at this point that music started to play, and it almost sounded like boss music, to be honest with you. I kinda hated it. Or, why is there music playing? Is there a voice singing along to that, or am I tripping? Sounds like someone's singing. Do you hear that? I hate that sound. God, I hate that. See, it's in situations like this where you just turn off the game, and then you take the computer and then you throw it out the window. Whoever's singing, they really do know how to sing. That kind of sounds like Miley Cyrus a little bit. Oh, that actually hurts my eyes. Jesus. Wow, you have the voice of an angel. Come here and let me give you a kiss. God, why is it getting louder? Ew. Dude, where am I supposed to go? Okay. We did it, guys. I'm not that stupid. God, that's so loud. Okay, Beethoven really hitting those bars back there. I'm not gonna lie to you. Oh, that's where it was coming from. Look at that. Shut up, bitch. Are those eyes on the back of it? Yeah, why don't you cry about it? You gonna cry about it? You gonna piss? Shut the fuck up. Oh, why do I hear Gregorian chants now? I think I summoned something. Oh, why can't I walk? Oh, look at, was that the interloper? Now, I might have sounded cool, calm, and collected, and maybe even a little bit deranged, but I assure you guys, the whole time I was just coping. I was running on pure copium, as I always do. But I did manage to put 2 and 2 together pretty quickly here. We know based on the user that was first shown to us on the login page, the one named Sarah, is the same person that's haunting this game. But why and how? Well, continuing to play the game doesn't really yield any answers yet. Because right as I was about to capture the flag one last time, this little glitch that you see on the screen here starts to happen, and Sarah throws us out of the game. Gatekeeper. When we visit the game's website to submit a feedback form, we find a message stating that submissions are closed due to someone from the team grieving the loss of a loved one. We can only assume at this point that this is referring to Sarah, who is presumably the wife of one of the developers. Well, you know what? I don't give a shit. I want to talk to the manager. So that's exactly what I did. Clicking submit reveals a string of glitching text until we finally get the passphrase, sentimental. This is what we used to log into John's account. At this point, I was starting to question how we even got access to this guy's computer. Are we John or someone that John knew? On the upper right here, you can see pictures of John and what we now know to be his wife, Sarah, just having a grand old time together. Before the inevitable happened, of course. This must be what divorce feels like, isn't it? Remember that that game that I tried to download earlier? Well, conveniently, it was already downloaded in John's downloads folder, so I decided to give it a try. This game is pretty unremarkable, to say the very least, at surface level. It's a pirated point-and-click romance simulator that doesn't even let you finish the game, because it knows all your dirty little secrets, you fucking bastard. I didn't really understand the significance of this game until much later on, however, because if you haven't noticed, I have the attention span of a pissant. It was honestly so boring that I at first, my first time playing it, I didn't finish it. I had to X out of it and come back to it later. The whole time I was just sporadically clicking around at random things in no particular order in this game, so most of that is cut out, but that is what I was doing, just to let you know. The only interesting thing to note about this game, however, is if you go to the files and click on one of the images, this is what appears. You like it? Isn't it nice? Don't you like that? I don't. Already burnt out from 5 minutes of hitting the space bar, I decided to snoop through John's private messages. Here we can find a generic conversation between John and a guy by the name of Inuit, supposedly the person that the video game company is named after. They discuss bugs and other issues that were happening in the game, but nothing significant. Nothing significant until we make our way to the very bottom. If you look closely, you'll see that a sign-in was detected on another device, and that we are advised to log in again to view newer messages. John's onto us, boys. This conversation between John and a guy named Marco is essentially them discussing the significance of having a game with 3D graphics at such an early time for the video game industry. Interestingly, here we can see that Quinn Wynn, the guy who tried to swindle us before, already had previous correspondence with John. Once again, nothing significant though, just a guy expressing his love for the game. But this does at least establish a prior connection between the two. And then lastly, some MLM guy who's apparently evading his taxes. Good for him. Good for him. We love to see the Winston lore. I want to know more about this guy. I returned once more to the File Explorer, searching desperately for John's hidden corn stash. I did eventually find something much more interesting. A folder called My Scans, and I know it sounds suspicious, but it's not what it sounds like. It contains 2 images of a boardwalk at night and a folder titled Sarah. Inside the Sarah folder, there's a picture of a lake at night and the same boardwalk once again. Now, as I'm sure sure you all have noticed, down below there's an application called Soul Transfer and a folder containing the dev files right beside it. This is where things get juicy, my friends. Clicking on this folder reveals a fuck ton of text documents, and I'm not going to bore you guys with all the details, but to give you a very, very rough summarization. These documents essentially describe how John apparently discovered that games can be haunted by souls. I don't know how one comes to that conclusion, but good for you, I guess. And if two games have similar souls in them, then you can somehow transfuse them together to create a three-dimensional game. In doing so, he had to find a way to intercept the souls from corrupting the games that they're contained within. So he did this by creating an engine designed specifically for this process. Here he discovered that repeatedly using this engine wears down the souls over time and eventually destroys them. But during his experimentation process, he just continues to do it anyway, fully aware of this, mind you. He's basically found a way to manipulate and control these poor souls that are trapped in these video games against their will, like some Frankenstein-ass motherfucker. By fusing two haunted games together, they can also change and directly influence the gameplay, almost like they're creating their own story within the game. So whatever we're seeing is likely a message from the spirit itself. Eventually, he stops his admittedly cruel experiment as he's finished the prototype for CTF, and ominously states at the end of this document here that it's time to give his game its own soul. Boy, oh boy, did he do exactly that. Opening up the soul application and clicking generate starts this weird process that's a bit over my head, but if you look very closely, you can see Sarah's name mentioned here. Once again, further establishing that somehow it was her soul that ended up in the game. Clicking on the Infuse tab, dragging CTF beta to the center, then dragging the two games in the downloads folder. Yes, there were two. There were two games, and no, I wasn't about to play a fucking fishing simulator, even if it does have knives, okay? Sue me. And dragging them into the two empty slots on the transfer screen somehow fuses them into a monstrosity devoid of God's love. And you bet your ass we're gonna fuck around and find out. By clicking on the game, it becomes pretty clear that something within has a mind of its own. It almost appears to be reliving something. Here, we appear to be standing at the front door with our dog Nina, who's barking to be let out. Someone off camera, presumably John, speaks to us. It's okay, I can take her for you. Let me finish up this part real quick. No, please, I've been bothering you enough all day. I'll take her again, I don't mind. But it's night now, it's really not safe. I'll just go around the park, I'll be fine. Okay, but be careful. I'll make us something when you get back. Thanks, honey, love you. Love you too. And so we venture out into the unknown. It's darker than I thought. Should be okay. And no, in fact, it wasn't okay. For some reason, Nina keeps barking as if she sees something that Sarah can't see. Despite the poor visibility, Sarah continues and... Oh, this can't be good. Sarah makes her way over to the boardwalk from the scanned picture. You hear the still water of the lake. Notice you can't see Nina anymore. Keep going. You can't see anything. You keep going. At this point, the game suddenly crashes, and the file we use to open it is transformed into a beautiful kidney stone. Dragging the stone to the Infuse tab and forcing it up CTF's ass creates a new Frankenstein monster. Let's go ahead and play God some more. Why not? 5th of October, 1974. CTF Gorge. Unknown time. Wandering around the corner reveals that parts of the map are now completely submerged underwater. A towering structure has sunk to the floor. The player realizes there's an interfering party. Nevertheless, the player marches towards the blue flag. The concrete halls are filled with renewed ambience. A pool of water bridges an unfriendly gap. Feelings of sitting at the lake with friends stir up inside you. Still, you can't ignore the other, watching from across the lake. So here this seems to be recounting the time that John met his wife at the lake. She was just staring at him unblinkingly from across the bog. How romantical. The flag rests in an unfamiliar place. Why here? The player wonders. Sorry, I actually think there's no good reason. The other one is just plain messy. It was up to him. The whole map would be underwater by now. Swimming in this area for a bit reveals a gap where we can fall out of the map. I'm just gonna let this part play for itself. Subnautica? Is this a Subnautica reference, guys? I wanna go closer to it. Maybe he can be my friend. Oh, why? Ew! That better not be my wife, guys, am I right? I hope that bitch isn't my wife. What is this, a little box, a little present for me? Whoa, the back rooms, my favorite, poggers. The player stands in a room with a wooden door. A clock ticking, a carpet with a familiar smell. Grassy lawns circled by concrete pillars seem only a distant memory now. Open the door? Yes. At this point, we are now transferred to a familiar facade of a house, and the front door greatly resembles the one that Sarah walked out with Nina. Now, it took me a while to figure this out, but by aligning myself perfectly with these blue boxes, we get juicy, lore-filled dialogue. To put it simply, John and Sarah were going through it. If you want me to summarize here, basically, John was locked upstairs all the time, working, while Sarah craved more attention from him. She was always downstairs doing her own thing, mainly focusing on her art, which John was strangely overly critical of. They seem to have very little in common, to say the least. Now, this last piece of dialogue from Sarah is where things get very interesting. This is where she expresses her discomfort with the fact that her husband is always locked up in his office and she's always downstairs. The dialogue suddenly starts to repeat this phrase. Why are you keeping me in your work? What is this place? And then lastly, is anything I'm saying getting through to you? We are suddenly teleported back to the yellow brick road where we retrace Sarah's steps through the magical forest and down to the boardwalk. She then walks off the boardwalk and towards a piece of the game map looming in the distance. And this is where the game crashes and the demo ends. So what we can gather so far is that John has done some very, very terrible things. Not only to the souls that were haunting the other two games, but to his wife, Sarah. It's unclear what led to her passing, but we know that whatever it was happened while she was walking towards the boardwalk with Nina. If you guys recall, during the initial cutscene where Sarah and Nina were walking through the forest together, Nina starts to bark at something that Sarah can't see. Because of this little detail, I'm going to have to guess that foul play was involved, simply because of that, because I know that wasn't put there for no reason. It's also heavily implied with CTF Beta being mostly underwater and Sarah's spirit swimming below the map, that she was either drowned or someone unalived her and then tossed her body in the lake. Whatever happened led to her being completely submerged somehow. Now, do I think John unalived his wife? No, obviously not. Why the fuck would you ask that? This wouldn't even be possible since he stayed behind while his wife was walking the dog, so that wouldn't even really make sense to begin with. However, I do believe that he felt immense guilt after her passing, and using his knowledge about soul transfusion, he found a way to selfishly trap her soul inside the CTF game. Unfortunately, his wife does not want to be there at all, and John knows it, but you know what? He doesn't give a shit because he's an asshole, and I fucking hate him. I mean, she was gonna file for divorce anyway, John. And here you are, trapping her inside a Gmod map. Is that any way to live? Now, due to the fact that you have to fuse two similarly haunted games together in order to achieve this effect that he's gotten, I almost wonder if Sarah is not the only one haunting this game. What if the other spirits used in this process to create this game are also trapped within, along with Sarah? If you guys recall, in the last few seconds of the game, a giant hand appears and a weird weirdly misspelled dialogue box manifests with it. I almost lean in the direction of this not being Sarah, but, you know, maybe some other entity that our little brains can't even begin to understand. Now, as far as who Quinn Wynn is, or where Inuit comes to play in all of this, I am very uncertain. But I do believe that Quinn is in on this somehow, due to his prior connection with John. I mean, why the fuck would he just invite us to the game only to not show up at all? I don't think that's a coincidence. All in all, I'm sure there's other things that I might have missed while playing through the demo, as my playthrough was very chaotic, and I spared you guys the horrible details of that. You're very fucking welcome. So if you guys want to have a look at this game at all, I highly suggest that you download the demo off of Steam and then add it to your wish list for when the full version comes out. I'm going to be leaving links down below in the description. Thanks for eating this weekly slop up again, guys, and until next time.